Hi there, everybody, and welcome to Talking True, where I interview mystics, near-death experiences, healers, and people who are having awakening events leading them to the truth of who they are. And my guest today is Françoise E. She is a body, mind, movement expert, and she has a fantastic story to tell about her own awakening process. So thank you for joining me, Françoise. It's lovely to have you with me today.
So good to connect, Julie. Thank you for having me.
So, do you want to dive in and tell people what happened to bring you to where you are today?
Well, I'm going to start briefly with my story and as a source of inspiration for other people's stories. So, I was born in Europe to all Holocaust survivors. And at that time, I had no idea what that meant and the intergenerational trauma that was actually brought in. We came to America the first time when I was 3, and then we went back and forth until I was 7. At the age of 5, I absolutely knew why I was on earth. I knew I was here to serve through my creativity. At the age of 7, my father apparently had packed us up and was ready to move us back to France, to Nice. And my mother found out he was cheating. To make a long story short, we never followed, and I never saw my father again until I was 21. My mother then married my stepfather when I was 9, who became my greatest perpetrator and abuser. And he sexually and emotionally abused me from the age of 9 to 16. Now, why I'm telling this story is because he was a Holocaust survivor. He was an Auschwitz survivor. And that launched for me the deepest exploration of what allows some people to go through tremendous trauma and travesty and come out broken, just like their perpetrators, like my stepfather, or who become great, like Viktor Frankl, like one of my greatest heroes, Alice Hertz Summers, like the Dalai Lama, like so Nelson Mandela, just to name a few.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, that started something. And at 16, I decided I went to see my first shrink. I also started doing yoga, and nobody was doing that back then. And I decided I'd become a psychiatrist. And then I went back into my art. And finally, at the age of 21, I found my perfect marriage for serving through my creativity. And I became a dancer and then got my master's in dance and dance therapy and really pioneered that field. At the same time, I decided after my master's degree that I had to get very serious about meditation. I could not find the right group.
Mm-hmm.
And I was initiated in about, oh gosh, in Buddhism and in about 10 different forms, and nothing felt right. And then finally, this was way back in the late 70s, I found a little group in the Oakland Hills. And at the same time, I had gotten this correspondence course, which talked about the mind and how you could create by controlling the mind and your energy. And what I didn't know was that was connected to this path that became my path, Siddha Yoga. At the same time that I was in this incredible little group in the Oakland Hills, she said, Françoise, you've got to come next week because the Muktananda people are going to be here. Now, exactly at the same time, I had 3 dreams from this Swami who came to me in the dream. I remember him being so beautiful. He had a white turban on. And in the dream, he gave me his picture and he told me to put it next to Swami Muktananda and Nityananda. And sorry, the world goes on.
Yes, yes.
My phone, my in any case, but I love it. Things are so different in this world at this time. In any case, I had this dream, and in the dream, he told me his name was Sai Baba, and he kept telling me to put my picture next to these two other beings, and he told me I was part of this lineage, which was called the Siddha lineage. In any case, I then, after the third dream, which was identical in each one, I finally went to a bookstore in Berkeley and I said, I keep having this dream about this dude named Sai Baba. Can you tell me who he is? And so the owner of the bookstore said, well, is he dead or alive? And I said, no, I don't think he's alive. And then he opened a book, and there in the book was exactly what I was shown. Picture of him, Muktananda, and Bhagavan Nityananda. And then my path just unfolded. I found myself at the Oakland ashram. I found myself having experiences of awakening that were beyond my wildest dreams. And it took me on a path over many years where I became a meditation teacher. My work with movement was launched in directions that I could never have imagined. And what it did is it planted a seed of wisdom, of grace. And now, 40 years later, so many decades later, I'm realizing that that gift has to be now shared in the world, because even though in the 70s and 80s, many of us were awakened, we had no idea what would happen in the world. I also did very, very deep recovery of the sexual abuse and the emotional abuse, and then worked with thousands of sexual abuse survivors in hospitals, halfway houses, jails, prisons, to bring them to that recovery. And now it seems like there's so much information out there, but we really still have to dig deeply into that inner work. And I think we really have to impart the knowledge, the pathways, because they're not the same for every person. And then the guidance. And it's so important today, trauma recovery, resiliency, and really connecting to our inner wisdom and then spreading that.
Yes, 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 because now it's so easy to be distracted by all the narratives we're hearing, constant narratives, and that then
I just got 2 phone calls.
Yes.
I never get phone calls.
Yeah, and all of that generates self-doubt rather than actually trusting the wisdom of the inner self, or the higher self, whatever you want to call that. So can I just clarify something? When you said that you discovered this great being was Sai Baba, you're speaking about Sai Baba of Shirdi, correct?
I am. And it's interesting because I know Satya Sai Baba was in the body for quite a while, but it was Shirdi. And I never went to Shirdi, but I did go to Ganesh Puri. And I was just astounded, but because I know you've told me a little bit about your story, we're not taught to believe our dreams. And when we have dreams about something that we could not make up because it's not in our history, it's not in our consciousness, it's nothing we read, then I think what it does is it aligns us with something greater.
Yes. And it causes us to be pulled into this, I was going to say river, but it's really more of an ocean. It's an ocean of grace.
Yes.
And sorry, go ahead.
I just find, there's so many paths now today, but I think what it does, it confuses people. And to align with a path that when I teach meditation, I always talk about what Baba talked about, which was Muktananda, which was that there are 2 mantras. There's the Jad mantra, and then there's the Chaitanya mantra. I know, I love Sanskrit. The ancient languages, I think, have a vibration. Now we're learning that we are vibration. And But it's really true, is to find that truth, something that really resonates, that can't be broken. And what I love about the yogic path is the great yogis taught that we are here for joy and bliss and happiness. But if we look outside ourselves for it, it comes and it goes. It's like we are leaves in the wind. But when we can really contain that, no matter what's, and that's not easy. That's what takes the strength, the courage, and also the ability through inner work to release what is not ours. I remember a book that Muktananda wrote, the title of Getting Rid of What You Haven't Got. And people think that if we just keep adding on to ourselves, that's the way to go. And it's really the opposite. It's the ability to let go of the burdens, whether they're intergenerational, they're from birth, or they're accumulated along the path. And it's about having that discernment of being able to know when to let it go. And then we find our true self.
Yes, yes. And the challenge often is finding others that can support that view. And certainly
finding
when
a true teacher, not just a false teacher.
Exactly. Finding one that embodies the truth of what they're speaking about. And I know ever since I was a kid, I was having lucid dream experiences, out-of-body experiences, visitations from angelic beings, visitations from deceased loved ones who come and tell me they're okay, and all of these. And I'd hear things and see things, and the whole 9 yards. And to me, that was perfectly normal. It was absolutely 100% normal, and I trusted that more than I trusted what I was kind of seeing in the outside. But I didn't have anybody to speak to about these things, even though I trusted what I was experiencing and perceiving and feeling and so on and so forth. And it took me until 1989 when I had a lucid dream experience with Bhagavan Nityananda to actually see and recognize that he was the one that I had been searching for all my life. And my seeking ended there and then, actually, is what happened. But I was reflecting this morning that from as far back as I can remember, ever since I was a child, I never had any desire for accumulation. And I was always the weird one. I never wanted to become rich and famous.
Me too.
It's like, and the thing that I see now is what I was always searching for is that which never comes and goes, that which is always here no matter what, that which never changes, that which can be leaned into and to, is loyal to you and you can be loyal to it. And that is always what I had been searching for. And I found and discovered in the form of Bhagavan Nityananda, which of course is it's the timeless self in the form of this great being. So I hear everything you say. It's so true that we have to come to a place of wanting that more than what this world seemingly has to offer.
And what I loved about the path that was right for me, Siddha Yoga, which means the path of perfected beings, is that it was inclusive of everything. It was based on a philosophy. I haven't talked about this in years. I love it. Based on a philosophy called Shavir. Shavir. Now, wait a minute. Kashmir. Oh no, my word. Kashmir. No.
Shaivism.
Kashmir Shaivism. Thank you. So it's based on the understanding that there is nothing that's separate from the unified field, from the universe. I don't like even using the word God because it's been so misinformed and so misused. But it is that alignment that on one hand is unique in each one of us, and on the
Mhm.
other hand, that connects all of us and that we're never separate from. And I've come to finally realize that it's Kashmir Shaivism, is that it's that separation that makes us long for love, that
Mhm.
makes us long for beauty, that makes us long for things, that makes us long for accumulation. And that's the same within all of us. And if we can just reach to
Yes.
that deeper sense of self, but it's not like that, because we have to overcome, as I said before, all those things that it's not. And
Yes.
yet, there's a great saying I remember in Zen, that there was a seeker on the path, and he was, he was meditating and he was doing all these disciplines, and then he said, okay, the trees are not that, and this is not that, and that's not it, and that's not it. And he just kept doing that. And then he did his practice for decades. And he reached that place of alignment. And he walked out and he went, the trees are it. And that's it. And that's it. And again, what I loved about this path is I never had to stop doing what I did in the world.
Yes.
I could do it in the world. I am moderate. I am French. I have a little wine every night.
Yes. Yes.
And it's a matter of, once you are able to touch that alignment and then walk with it more and more, then everything in the world lights up too.
Yes.
And everything can be included. And I
Yes.
think, there's so many people that, oh, you have to be vegan and you have to do this and you have to do that and you can't eat onions and you can't do garlic and you can't do wine. And that's not the path, because that isn't for everyone. It's not about neti, not this, not that. It's
Mhm.
about aham asi. I
Yes.
am everything.
Yes. Yes. And welcoming everything as well,
Yeah.
so that yes, welcoming anger, frustration, depression, despair, whatever shows up in terms of conditioning or moods or mind loops or whatever that is.
Not
And
easy. Not
it's
easy.
it's not easy,
I
but it's vital.
Yes. And I remember, um, I love symbols and I love allegories, because they can teach us,
Mm-hmm.
from our lives, from our experience. I remember when I was very deeply on, going to the ashram, and really, where my inner life was almost more awake, more exciting than my outer life. I remember that I was going through stuff, things were coming up, emotions and physical conditions. And I remember being told that when you are on a spiritual path, what happens is it's like seeing a window that is very dirty. And you go and you get a cloth and you get some Windex or some vinegar and you clean it. And what I remember being was told that you don't want to mistake the dirt on the cloth for who you are. But wiping the dirt off the window will create this very clear lens.
Yes. Yes.
And that's what you're talking about, is being able to go through those feelings, and being able to go through some of the darkness
Mm-hmm.
that occurs without thinking that you are the
Yeah.
darkness
Yes.
or the pain.
Yes. Yes. Instead, you are that which sees the darkness and the pain. And
Witnesses it
yeah.
and has
And
the courage to feel it and let it go. And that's a lot of the work that I have pioneered, is being able to help people do that. And
Yes.
of course, having had to do it myself upon layer upon layer upon layer.
Yes, yes, yes. So let's talk a little bit about your work. So if I reached out to you as a prospective client, what would that look like? Let's say online, if I'm not living close by.
Yeah, because I do all my sessions on Zoom as well. Well, I do a couple of programs. I have a new meditation class I just started that people can come on to, and I give them so many different techniques as well as the mantra and chanting, but also guided visualization. So I love teaching that. I do yoga classes and one-on-one sessions. I do one-on-one, what I call movement for the mind sessions, which allows people to feel their trauma and release it. And that's the work that I pioneered with movement. You don't have to be a dancer. You don't, anybody can do it, even in a wheelchair. It's about reaching beyond the beta brainwave state into the alpha brainwave state, and then feeling the emotions that might have been buried for decades, and then releasing them physically so that they have a voice and a stage, and then replacing that with who you really are, which is everybody's different, but we all have the birthright of joy and play and fun. And that's one thing I really wanted to say. I like you've had the darshan, which means the meeting uh, of many great beings in your lucid dreams. And I, for some reason in this lifetime, am old enough that I was able to sit at the feet of some very great beings. And they all had, of many traditions, from Buddhism to yogis. And what they all had in common was this beautiful, childlike
Mm. Yeah.
sense of being alive.
Mm-hmm.
None of them were like, I'm serious. They
Yes.
all were beautiful, playful in their own way. And I think that's what we have to remember,
Yeah.
that
Yes.
that that lightness, that beauty, even when we're in the middle of our grief and darkness and pain, whether
Mm-hmm.
it's physical, emotional, or mental. So I love being a guide for that, to get people back to who they really are and to finding their truth and their beauty and their fun and their play and their purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And then
Yeah.
I also, like you, since a kiddo, I've been empathic and psychic. So I also do clairvoyant numerology sessions for people as a guidepost, as a way to really illuminate what's going on in their world and then how to transform it.
Mm-hmm.
Again, not for pain, but for the beauty, for the good,
Yes.
for the
Yeah.
lightness.
Yes. Because and these things are so incredibly important, because unless we can find somebody to help us at least recognize our trauma
Mm.
responses essentially is what it is, right? And closing off and pulling away and all of those things, then it's easy to get stuck in this kind of diminished way of living where you might be inspired, let's say, to write a book or create a course or whatever it is. And then unless you've dealt with the trauma response will just be to keep closing everything down to keep you safe. And
It's
yeah, so this is why it's really, what you're doing is really amazing.
So it's really interesting, Julie, because you and I talked a little bit. Both of us have had some interesting challenges
Yeah.
in the body. My most recent was being hit by a car while walking in my happy place, and I'm still in recovery. But in this past fall, I was on a panel uh, at an INS conference, INS being International Association of Near-Death Studies. And I did a movement session, and I also told my story on a panel, my mystical story. So I listened to one person there, and I've never been to the International Association of Near-Death Studies before. And for me, my mystical path, came in this life and probably before, but I had my yogic masters here. I didn't die. But I remember this one woman saying, Her name was May, and I remember her face was like luminous. And she told the story that she'd gotten married, she'd lived this great life, all was good, but she had always had a heart condition. And she got pregnant, and somehow they didn't catch her heart condition, and she died. And she said she died for 7 days. They said she died for 90 minutes. And in her journey, the most important part that I remember is that she was told that we come back different body, different face, different place,
Mm-hmm.
but with certain things that we need to heal, certain wounds, certain life lessons. And until we heal them, we continue to come back here and play it out. And that resonated with me to such an extent because this whole life, I somehow knew that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's one of the most important things we can do is really heal ourselves, because when we heal ourselves, we're free and we're not imposing our wounds on everything and everyone around us. And
Yes.
it's a layering and it's an unlayering of that, of what I spoke about, of getting rid of what we haven't got.
Mm-hmm.
And no matter how great our lives might appear, each one of us has something that we're here to do, unfold, and heal.
Yes. 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 And the thing is unless we become conscious of what needs to be healed, we're forever trying to hide the wounded part, or we're looking for
Exactly.
someone to relieve that in us, and then disappointed when we can't find someone or something to make us feel better. And you and I both know what that, we've, well, we can all relate, right? Because that's a human condition right there.
It really is. And we the great news about being alive today is that there is information. There are resources out there. There's more and more of it that we're realizing about consciousness, about becoming conscious, about intergenerational trauma, about PTSD. After
Mm-hmm.
World War II, there wasn't even that word. And the reason there is so much intergenerational trauma today is because there weren't those healing modalities available. There wasn't that knowledge, but today there is. So I want to invite everyone to look within themselves and to see what isn't working,
Mm-hmm.
and then have the courage to not look out there, but look in here with gentleness, with kindness.
Yes.
I
Yes.
remember as a kid, always hearing, "Oh, you've got to love yourself. You got to love yourself. Go take a bath, Françoise. You love yourself." And I would go, "Take a bath? How is a bath gonna do it?" And it's been a lifelong journey to finally, especially when there's trauma as a kiddo, because you start to believe what was told to you. You believe you're not good enough. You believe you're ugly. You believe you are worthless.
Mm-hmm.
Because as kiddos, we are mostly in the alpha brainwave state. So we believe whatever's around us and we ingest it as our own.
Yes. 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 And the other part of that too is it's really easy to just kind of tell people, be true to you, or be you, love
Yes.
yourself, and all of those things. But it's very hard to do that if you haven't dealt with your trauma, if you haven't dealt with your pain and your grief and your suffering and all of those things. In fact, it's near impossible to do. I mean, you might be able to do it for a little while, but then that part of you that hasn't been dealt with will just keep kind of tapping away and reminding you of what you're really feeling inside. So this work is essential, especially if you want to awaken to the truth of who you are and attain enlightenment or self-realization, or whatever you want to call your true nature, that which is your true nature. It cannot be avoided. This work has to be done.
Yeah, it really does. And it's interesting because in ancient times, and I love studying ancient times because those are the ageless wisdom that we're bringing back today. In ancient times, in ancient India, only men were allowed after 40, after raising a family, to go and become mendicants, to become and really dig deeply inside and pursue the path of what you said, enlightenment. And I think, there were some great female mystics, but they had to do it especially in the patriarchal society in the last 7,000 years, they had to do it in very hidden ways. And I think what's so extraordinary, and again, you and I are inviting people, that today now, women and men can find that path towards alignment, enlightenment, however you want to call it. Most importantly, that path that releases any part of you that's a victim.
Yes.
And, in our society, that's not easy.
Yeah, because it's everywhere you turn, right? In terms of the narratives we're hearing and the justifications and everything.
Blame, shame. Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. But I remember, on this same topic, I remember it must have been 1995, but it was just ahead of me starting shadow work. And I didn't even know what shadow work was because I'd never been raised to, do any counseling or anything. I was kind of clueless. And I'd been having all these bliss-filled experiences and so on and so forth. And then was kind of pushed into shadow work. But ahead of that, I had this dream, a lucid dream with Sai Baba of Shirdi. And he was just showing me the luminosity and the light coming out of the heart. And he was just raising his hands and he was telling me, share from your heart. And then he dug into this, he had this like little waistcoat on, and he dug in and he took out this like concertina picture. It was a kind of series of pictures, concertina, like folded together. And it was pictures.
Oh, yes.
Yes, it was these images of all these female saints,
Wow.
Mirabai, Muktabai. Yes, it was all these great female saints. And he was saying, look, it's possible, this is you, this is for you, this is for you, this is your birthright, this is your calling. And I'll never forget that because it was that really empowered me to continue, especially when I was in the midst of doing all the shadow work, which was wasn't easy. And and recognizing that it was imperative to do that work, to be able to then come through it and kind of come out the other side, or integrate the darkness, is another way of putting it, right? Rather than trying to sort of push it away and pretend it doesn't exist. But that dream was just so incredibly powerful, and I just love that he was showing me the evidence of these great beings who were women, and that it's possible in this lifetime.
Wow. Yeah, very profound. We in this world have been taught. I remember Wayne Dwyer used to say this. He used to say, we're taught that when we see it, we'll believe it. And yet the truth is,
Yes,
Sometimes we have to believe in order to see, because our perspective, we forget that each one of us sees something different from behind our eyes. And it's our perspective, it's our belief, it's our thoughts that create our reality.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, now quantum physics is showing us that everything, I have a table here that appears to be solid, you can hear it. But we know today it's just atoms. It's just the vibration that
Mm-hmm.
creates the density. And it's the same thing with us. And
Yes.
so I think it is really an important time, like you said, to be shown that we women need to bring our femininity to the world, which is strong and powerful, but it's soft and kind and heart, not mind, but heart
Mm-hmm.
forthcoming.
Yes. Yes.
And to allow, women and men to unveil their feminine,
Mm-hmm. Yes.
even while they're going through their darkness
Mm-hmm.
or the
And
shadow, as you call it.
yes, and trust the wisdom of the heart, and trust the wisdom of the inner self, or your intuition, whatever you want to call it, right? Because that will always set you on the right path, always. The mind, Muktananda used to say the function of the mind is to think and to doubt. I love that because it's so true, right? Whereas when you trust your heart, there's no question.
And it's interesting too, because the path is so multi-layered. They often look at it as this beautiful lotus, and it's because the lotus comes from the mud, this exquisite
Mm-hmm.
flower, fragrant flower. It's birthed from the darkness, from the mud. And that's
Yeah.
like us, in some way that gives us strength to do that, dark work. And then to bloom like a lotus flower. Yeah, it's so
Yeah.
important. But I do remember you reminded me when I was in India, he used to say that, because everybody was very, into health food and, even back then organic and which is great. And he would say it's very important, the food you put in your body. But even more important is the food you put in your mind.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. And the food you allow in, right? And
Right,
where you place your
right.
focus and attention, and what you buy into and what you listen to and all of those things. Because, for example, it's really easy to be inspired, let's say, to write a book. And then if you listen to friends, family members, whoever, that say, oh, it's really hard. No, it's so difficult to become known or to be able to make sales. You just listen to these obstacles that you can often hear. You can just close down and give up before you even start. So we
So
have to be selective about who we engage with, how we engage, what we share, and where we spend our time and where we direct our focus.
so important, Julie. It's interesting because you've always found yourself unique and different than maybe everyone around you, and yet somehow you had the support to pursue this. And as much trauma as I had in my childhood, my family was very open to the mystical in a very strange way, and it took years to find that out. But I lost my train of thought here. Uh, but what's important is to unfold that. And I remember throughout my life, I always had the support of like-minded people. It somehow gave me the courage to keep going. And then when COVID hit, and this is important, I think, for your viewers to hear, because someone else might have felt like this. I gave up my knowledge and I gave in to the fear. I gave into isolation. I did things that I would have discerned before, and then I didn't. And I went through probably the greatest darkness I've ever been through in my life, and also created a lot of physical issues. But now I realize I gave up my inner voice to the outer world and to the fear in the world. And I think that's really important today to, like you said, really discern, who do we listen to? What do we listen to in our own minds? What do we listen to in our own hearts? And to really be discriminating. And every great master that I've ever listened to always said, don't believe what I say. Discern, discriminate, and experience it for yourself. And so what I realized today, and I've had to really sort of forgive myself for having gotten so lost.
Yeah.
In the COVID times. And it was long. And I gave up me. I gave up my knowledge, but now I'm, at least I have found it back. But there may be other people that did the same thing, that gave into the fear, that gave into all kinds of feelings that weren't theirs.
Yeah. I think I went the other way. I went deeper into the silence within my own being.
A lot of people did.
It was just such an incredibly powerful time and insightful time and all of those things. But, either way, the point is that right now is what is important, and listening to your inner guidance and staying true to that is where the power is. It's where the authenticity is. It's where the life and the joy are as well. And that's really worth fighting for.
Yes, yes, yes.
Beautiful.
And doing it, whether you're 10, and I remember being around the ashram, there were so many kiddos around there who were meditating, who were playing, who were laughing, who were dancing, but they were also doing deep work. And, so it doesn't matter if you're 3 or you're 103.
Yes.
It's always time to start.
Yes.
To continue.
Yes.
To evolve.
Yes.
And in that way, you're helping the world.
Yes, for sure. Absolutely. Well, Françoise, this is I think a great, I could talk to you for hours actually, but maybe we should end this episode for now. But before we close off, can you just remind people where they can find you?
Yes. So I have a website. It's Body, Mind, Dynamics with an S.org. And you can email me at Netter, N with a, like Nancy, ETTER at yahoo.com. And I also have a phone number on my website, and you can contact me there. I have classes, workshops, one-on-one sessions, and I'd love to offer anybody a 15-minute free consultation if you contact me by email or on my website. And I also have a book which you can purchase, Movement for the Mind, Dance That Awakens Healing, Inspiration, and Wisdom. And I always offer MP3s of 2 different CDs that I have, one with movement and one that is called Redress for Stress, because none of us need to get rid of our stress.
That's right. There'll always be stress, right?
Oh my goodness. Yeah, that's that. So anyways, I would love to hear from anyone. And again, bodyminddynamics.org, and you can always Google my name.
Brilliant. Brilliant. And of course, I'll have all those details in the show notes so people can just click and go and find you. I'll also put the details of the free 15-minute consultation. Did you say it was? Yeah, yeah.
Yes. And I have a YouTube channel. I have a lot of free resources, but yes, for your viewers, I would love to give them a consultation to see what would work for them.
Fantastic. So, Françoise, thank you so much for joining me. This has been really wonderful, and I'd love to invite you back if you're up for that. It'd be
I'd
really
love that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. So, thank you everybody for joining us, either today when it goes live or at another time. I really appreciate it, as does Françoise. If you have questions, feel free to ask questions and we'll get back and we'll respond as soon as we can. If you've enjoyed this content, then please share with friends and family members. And if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. That would be really great. So that's all from us today. Thank you so much again for joining us. We really value and appreciate you spending your time with us today. So take it easy, be well, and bye for now. Bye.